Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. Tonight's episode, Kickin' It. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you from the Indian Hill Studios in the Pine Hills Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. Tonight, continuing our theme of women kicking ass in films, especially karate-type movies, we have a little gem from 2014 starring Gina Carano, who's playing, I believe, in The Mandalorian, which in a moment the doctor will confirm. But I got to tell you, doctor, I like this film. It's getting crappy reviews ever, always had. It's made no money at the box office. It was a little VOD thing that I saw a few years back. And while it's not what you would call maybe an A-list movie in terms of budget and production, I didn't think it was a bad film at all. And I like the fact that she did a very good job in it. And I don't know why people hate it, meaning the movie, or her herself. And of course, gentlemen and ladies, I'm talking to RDV from the Great Midwest. Good evening, sir. How are you?
I am doing great.
So In the Blood is a story about a woman who we know is Gina Carano. So how do we make her believable? Well, we give her an abusive kind of background where she has to learn to kick ass. And the way they do it's kind of cool. But she gets involved with a dude that has a troubled past. So they're birds of a feather, and they marry together, and they go on their honeymoon, and then bad things happen because when you're Americans traveling overseas, nobody likes you because America, number one. And a lot of people, I think, get turned off by that idea. But I like updated movies that put Americans in this situation because there's always an element of danger when you're going abroad, especially in today's world, too. And having traveled around the world myself many times, I understand how you get kind of caught up in some weird situations. But that being said, it's up to Gina Carano to come kick ass and get her man and make it safe. And you know what? Whether you think it's believable or not, I think she does a great job. It's entertaining to watch. What are your initial thoughts?
Initial thoughts of this, I'm thinking, okay, I was like, okay, they didn't really get much of a background. I guess they did towards a little bit, She's just supposed to be about someone who's just works out a lot, even though she looks, I know in real life that she's a MMA member,
yes,
or a firefighter, so UFC. So seeing her next to Cam Gijanet, the plus play her husband, dude's scrawny as heck. So when they go to the club scene, when they're dancing, and Danny Trejo, a little drunken, gets a little.
Danny Trejo's not a big dude either.
No. He gets a little drunk. He's like, and she starts kicking ass. You get right there. It's like I'm like, dude, this is like freaking Wonder Woman just beating the crap out of people. I mean, she even was taking out the chicks too. Like,
oh yeah, she's not messing around.
Like I said, like I was expecting when they showed her flashback to her past, or her to be like ex-military, because that would make more sense. But no, she was actually just trained by a guy, the great Stephen Lang, playing a guy named Casey, who trained her how to fight.
Now let's back up a little bit. Let's just talk about Gina Carano, because really that's what this movie is all about. It's really honestly not about nobody else. Even though there's good actors in here, you could say that part of this film is a treat, which we'll talk about. But did you actually, I watched a lot of MMA, but this was about the time when I was there's starting to get to be too many matches, too many people, and I was kind of phasing out of watching that. It's just where it was in my life. I grew up on like Ken Shamrock in the early days of tough man stuff in the 80s and the 90s, as these things were coming together before it became mainstream in the late 90s, let's say early 2000s. But were you a watcher or follower of Gina Carano, or knew anything about her before you saw this film?
Well, yeah, I watched her in all the. I just watched it later today. So when this came out, I already knew who she was. Seen her in Fast and Furious movies. Before that, Haywire. She was in another one too. I forgot it's called with. But anyway, great actress, great fighter too.
Yeah. I think it's tough when people, have a presence or a look that they think it's automatically going to translate to being on screen. And so what I wanted to compare it to and ask you, because I am unfamiliar with this, is you've watched The Mandalorian, correct? And she's in there?
Yes.
How was she in there?
She's great in there. Like I said, this is the woman who knows her body, takes care of her body. She, knows what to do. And I'm pretty sure she does her own stunts for the most part.
Yeah, as much as an insurance company will let her, I'm sure.
I'd be shocked if she didn't do majority of her own stunts. She has like I said, she's not the kind of person to be like the prissy person, oh, I don't want to do that. Have someone else do that for me. Nice person. Gets a lot of flack on Twitter, but that's beside the point. I like her in the movies. I mean, I loved her watching in Haywire against
Mhm.
Ewan McGregor. She is a good actress, and people say like, "Well, no, she's a fighter. She can't act." I'm like, "Well, then The Rock can't act." Oh no, you can't say about The Rock. The Rock's great. I'm thinking, dude. Anyway, I like her in this movie because you get that essentially when she goes and she gives people the arm bars, dude.
Yeah.
You know, she knows what she's doing and comes off real. Now,
Yes.
I'm more afraid for the people who are the stunt people that are working with her. I'm thinking like, what if she goes to farm accidents? Snap.
Yeah.
But
Right.
but you can also realize though that she's not the only star in this movie. Although she is the main star of the movie, we got a few other names here that are pretty big. You know, some back in the day that were even bigger. You know, probably I'd say we're just around.
Well, Stephen Lang, you already mentioned, he's been around.
Yeah.
Luis Guzman's in here too. Danny Trejo, which people do know like from Machete and other things too, is in this as well. But you also have Treat Williams.
Exactly. Treat Williams playing her father-in-law who doesn't just trust her, thinks she's bad news, was against the marriage and all that stuff. He is it's a legend, bro. He's been in. He's another one of those guys up there. Like I consider him to be an A-list actor, even though he doesn't get as much roles as he used to. If he does,
I agree.
Not big roles. So basically having Treat Williams here, I'm like, dude, this is actually a pretty good cast.
Well, it made it feel like to me it wasn't a throwaway, that they were actually putting in what seemed to be an effort, because someone like Treat Williams usually never dials it in. And, Danny Trejo's not past his prime, and he always plays his character, and Luis Guzman's always an excellent side character, which he seems to be in a lot of films.
He's always like the one you can't trust. You notice that in a lot of those movies?
Yeah.
He's the disgusting one, or he's the sneak. He's the guy.
About 10 years before this film came out, we started getting what I like to call America torture porn movies. Everyone always talks about Hostel, but there's Turistas. There's a few others. The Chernobyl Diaries, which is actually, I think, underrated and pretty good for a kind of a thriller, where you're traveling and then things happen and all that too. And I think that's the modern day equivalent of the fact that we're so wired and connected now. You can't just go in the middle of the forest anymore and have bad things happen to you like you can, say, the original Evil Dead or Night of the Living Dead, because you'd have it on your camera or cell phone or whatever. And so to me, when in this film, that they go on vacation, they're going to this place. It was filmed in Puerto Rico. I don't remember if that was the actual location they went to and said so in the film, but they're doing stuff that you would do today. They're ecotourism, if you want to call it that. They're zip lining, which is a physical activity. They're doing things that are like, oh my God, let's go get the facial. Let's go do this. None of that crap stuff. She's a physical girl. He's whatever you want to call him. She's carrying the film and she's carrying the relationship. But hey, this guy, I'll let you talk about the guy here in a moment, Doctor. But when he goes missing, and then she kind of is like, gets the police involved, and she's kind of like getting all irritated at the guy that was helping him with the zip line, and she just gives him this look like, you MF-er, it's on. And then she goes to the police and all that. From there on, it's like, oh, this is really, really great.
I was like, she takes her shades off. Hey, you can't skip a line. He's like, hey, remember me? Click, throws it down. We're going for a ride.
Well, you didn't. I got the feeling you weren't too happy about her husband. Why is that?
Well, like I said, I mean, I guess that's me being pig-headed, being a misogynist guy. Hey, because love exists no matter who you are, what you look like. But it just puts my mind on my mind thinking like, someone like her would go for a guy that's guy and screening like that. Like, it always get the impression that he's the beta male in this whole entire movie because he's the one that gets kidnapped. Instead of going for her, they're like, no, we want the guy. So I'm thinking like, so obviously it's plot device.
Plot device is a good description, I think. Yeah.
To put her into like the hero and he's the damsel in distress. So. But I don't mind that.
It's not offensive. It's just it's very obvious, and because she's not one of these little 5'2" pretty little things that it's CGI'd and fast cut everywhere, and she doesn't do any stunts. Obviously, she's a very stout woman, a good 140, 145, in fighting shape. So she might be 150, 155 here. I'm not sure. 5'7", 5'8", I'm guessing. So a little bit taller than average. she looks like she can handle herself. And like you said, and whenever we've talked about this before with Bruce Lee, with Chuck Norris, even Steven Seagal and JCVD, when you've got command of your body and you're a fighter, and you just have to have the right scenes and right stuff, where even though you're Hollywooding it and you're holding back on it, they put a lot of stuff on her in here for her to shine. And to me, saving him, yeah, it's a plot device. People may not like it. I kind of dismissed it because I didn't really want to watch the guy. I didn't give her rat's ass, but I was interested in her journey from saying, okay, I'm taking control of the situation that's mostly run by males, even if it's the father-in-law, Treat Williams, or Luis Guzman, the guy, like you said, you can't trust, or the bone level, entry level thug dude on the zip line or whatever, and they all happen to know each other because it's a small island. Yeah, we get those things, right? Plot device.
Yes.
But like when she wears the red dress, she's feminine enough, but she looks like she can kick gas. I'm thinking as a guy, you got to go, that's my woman, that's my baby, because you know that about her, even though you both have troubled backgrounds, and he's, like you say, looks like he's kind of a bit of a beta male, like he can't handle himself physically. Well, she's an elite level fighter. We get it. I mean, you're still going to want to try to protect her, but he gets kidnapped. So when she goes to town on everybody in the dance club, I'm like, this is pretty good action. And most action films these days, or I think most people think of as guns, fights, and everything else, boring, snooze fest. Physical hand-to-hand combat is so much better, and she does such a great job. She gets all her spin moves in. She gets some choking. She gets some twisting. And again, like you said, when she gets locked in, she gets that look in her eye as she's doing the scenes. You just roll the film, and you're going to capture something special.
Yeah, the hand-to-hand combat, that's what I miss, I guess. That's what I liked about the first scene of Punisher. Same thing. When you start doing hand-to-hand combat stuff in this, instead of just going straight for the gun, it's much better, because it's like, it's a satisfying when you got the main person, is like, well, the bad guy, I ain't gonna tell you, like, snap, and we break another finger, snap. It's something good about that, We probably shouldn't cheer that, because it's like, he's still hurting someone. Like, you shouldn't have to do the last resort, but like, it's just satisfying when you hear a bone crunch and the bad guy is like, "You're not gonna kill me, snap! What the hell?" So, we even get a moment of that in the later end of the movie. That's specifically like that. But like I said, she's a beautiful woman. She's physically fit. She knows, and it's believable. It's not like you got this 115-pound soaking wet little girl I'm a tough girl. I'm gonna start doing roundhouse kicks and stuff and knock people down 3 times my size. No, this actually makes sense. She could basically go toe to toe with even the first one like The Rock if she had to. I'd be more believable than having somebody who's like, I'm 5'5" or 5'10" tall, Alexa Bliss. You know what I mean? I liked this movie that it was a well cast. The fact they're on the island, it's puts in theory. Like, now she doesn't know if her husband's alive or dead. Luis Guzman plays the sheriff. He's not, or the captain, or he's not. He's giving her the runaround, and then she finds out other people are giving her the runaround too. So she takes her in her own hands. And I love these movies. These are usually the straight to DVD movies. These are not the ones you go in theaters. Like it's movies like The Condemned or Haunted with Stone Cold Steve Austin, stuff like that. These are, even though I consider these to be the A-list action movies, what would have been huge movies back in like the 80s, versus today they're kind of pushed aside, because no one wants to we're done with the 80s. It's all about female power, but they don't want to promote violence still. It's all about drama, love, romance, comedy, stupid stuff, stuff like Ocean's 11 remake with all the girls. None of them could kick ass. All of them are all prissy looking. I'm thinking Gina Carano could pretty much become, if they ever had another Expendables movie, or she should have been in the first Expendables. Like I said, it makes sense to have her in there because she can kick ass. And I would love to see a fighting movie with her and Amy Johnson being partners, fighting just going against bad guys. That would be fun.
And it not being so much hip and a bunch of one-liners or goofy comments or anything kind of stupid. We get that a lot in some buddy cop stuff and in some 80s films that are meant to be kind of whatever. But you know what? I see Gina Carano playing in a movie that would be something like we would call a canon classic in either ninja films, whether it's the Dudikoff series, whether it's Kosugi's or anything else. And we've talked about Amy Johnson several times before, and I think the two of them, God, maybe you make Gina the bad. I don't make one of them bad. I don't really care. Make them turn on each other together or something. I don't know who a third one could be off
I
the
want
top of
it
my
to, I
head,
want it to be
but
in
those
the
two need to be on screen
yeah.
together.
Give me the American version of Yes, Madam. That's what I want.
Yeah, we covered that recently with Cynthia Rothrock in there, and that was what, 85, I think, that we talked about, and we said, hey,
Yeah.
that's that Girls with Guns theme that we've been talking about. Women are kicking ass, and there's just as many decent films like that we see in there, and most of it got started when we launched the channel too, when we talked about Lady Bloodflight with Amy Johnston. So I think that's a good comparison. As far as the film goes, though, I mean, you don't really get too many surprises or anything like that. It's straight action fare. You get plenty of decent scenes in here. It doesn't run on too long where you start going, oh, okay, I've seen enough. To me, I know it was pretty much a video on demand type film, not a big release or anything like that. But as an action film, it's underrated. I think it's very solid. I think anybody watching it could do a lot worse, especially in today's landscape when it comes to action films too. I know Scott Adkins does a lot of things, and if you know Scott Adkins, you see a lot of Scott Adkins stuff in his movies. Gina, she was somewhat relatively new to films at this time. I know she's doing Mandalorian and maybe one of the Furious things, a movie or two in that. So I'm not quite sure if she's toning down the hand-to-hand physical stuff and going more for acting. Don't really know, but I do know that this is a good film and worth seeing. Any last thoughts from you?
Yeah. If you come across Gina Carano, do not try to fight with her. I mean, there's already reports of her back in the couple years ago. People try to pick a fight with her, and yeah, she kicked the crap out of them in the theater.
Well, I mean, that's, you know what, it's a skill. You don't not learn how to do it, and like I say, she's physical. She keeps herself in shape.
Yep.
I think women being able to be portrayed in a very positive light, doesn't have to be anti-male, anti-patriarchy, anti-society, any of that kind of nonsense that is in a lot of films today, where they're just remaking movies and throwing women in there just because they can. This is a throwback, and even though some people say, "Oh, well, it's just a physical thing, she just kicks ass." Absolutely, she does, but she's assertive of what she's doing, and that just happens to be the skill that she has, that she worked very hard to acquire, and it's very believable and translatable on screen.
I'm very glad this wasn't a propaganda movie basically saying that women are strong, we don't need men. No, like you said, Gina Carano is the real deal. You know, she can put all these people like to shame, like Brie Larson, who's pretending to be strong. No, I like the fact that she actually knows what she's doing, and it's more believable. And like I said, there's a reason that we can't have strong women, because there are strong women. You know, it's believable. You know, not everyone is like, we've had the damsel in distress. Like, that works for certain movies, yes, but my own problem is, like, we didn't even have the guy as be a damsel in distress. I would have preferred if this would have been she'd not been married, just her just getting revenge, like her boyfriend was killed, and then going revenge. But this had a happy ending though, for those who were thinking about watching this movie. It does have a happy ending, but it also has a funny ending too.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Like I say, it's a quick watch, worth checking out, guys. I'd recommend you go seeing it. We love Ladies in Action. This is a great film that demonstrates that. Gina Carano, In the Blood, 2014. RDV, I'd like to thank you for joining, Jim, and chat. Hey, how you doing? If you just popped in, haven't seen this film, go check it out, Jim, and let other people know. But I know Ed and Maranya and some others definitely will be too. So for RDV, myself, and everybody involved here at the Extreme Movie Show, have a good night.
Stay extreme.